Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner podcast. My name is Coach Scott. I'll be your host today. Guys, I got a great show for you today. I got a great guest. We haven't been doing a lot of guests lately, but we're going to be going back to that format. It's kind of like the meat and potatoes of the show. We've just been kind of shying away from it a little bit, just from scheduling issues with the foundation and our nonprofit starting, and also the Ordinary Marathon underway. But now we've got a lot of that work in the back mirror, in the rearview mirror now. And we can kind of move ahead and try to bring some more folks onto the program. I know you guys love the guests. I know you love the solo podcast too. So a good mix, I think, is what we're looking for. And I got a great guest for you guys today. We'll bring him in just a moment. As always, you can find this and the back episodes of our podcast at our website, ordinarymarathoner.com. Check out the site if you get a chance. You can also find them on the YouTube channel. And if you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom. It really helps out the channel. We're approaching 200 subscribers, little by little, growing little by little. We really appreciate the support and the help. So thank you guys so much. At the end of this video, you'll see a little bit of a scroll and some names on that scroll. Those are our supporters, our sponsors, our patrons over at patreon.com. If you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/ordinarymarathoner and sign up to be a patron, and we'll read your name out on the podcast and also add it to the scroll at the end of every video that we do. So I thank all you guys for supporting the program. Again, it really helps us out. So thank you so much. That being said, let's get right to our guest for today. Not going to waste much of your time. Let's go and bring him in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you Eric Gillman.
Hello.
So Eric and I, we met through a nonprofit group that we're both members of. We kind of have we have a meeting every month, and it's just sort of a networking group. And we seem to have a lot in common. Eric's run a few marathons himself, I just found out, and has his own nonprofit. Well, it's not your nonprofit. You're on the board. Is that?
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of bring you what brought us all together and up to speed on what I'm working on. Because I've done an endurance athlete myself over multiple years of training and doing different events. And I'm planning a pretty massive bike ride coming up here soon. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But what brought us together, and amongst many things on top of the endurance side of things, is our propensity for giving and being a part of a nonprofit. So I've been with a group called Angel Wings International for about 10 years now. And what we've been doing and what we did primarily is we built a medical clinic in Haiti after the earthquake. So long story short, I have a very, very close friend of mine. I'm looking at a photo of him right here, named Andy Gentil, AKA our best friend, the Haitian sensation. And he's a very charismatic guy, so much so that he convinced over 100 people to raise over $1 million and travel over 10 times to Haiti and build a building. So that's primarily what our nonprofit is. And then that's what brought us to our little superhero group, our Justice League type meeting of a nonprofit roundtable, which is exciting because we're just forming it and just getting it going. And what that is we have like a Zoom networking group where mutual friends have all gotten together who are just trying to go above and beyond for their community and their own purposes. And it's exciting because we don't really even know what it is yet. I'm not even sure how to describe it exactly. Our last meeting was figuring out exactly what we're doing, but kind of like training for a race, it's like, we don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're doing something good and we know it's going to end up well, but we don't know where we're going right now. So that's exciting.
Yeah. And I think, you're here, right? I mean, this is a product of that meeting. So I think we're already doing good things and making good things happen. And I do like, the way you kind of let it off there. It's something about the nonprofit community where everyone just kind of looking to give back. You said you've been to Haiti, or at least that you've organized 10 trips to Haiti. You built a building. That building is not just a building; it's a hospital. I mean, you've really embraced this cause. And obviously you have a connection with your friend. But can you tell us sort of how that developed and how you kind of embraced that cause?
Yeah, definitely. I got to gloss over. I'm so jaded over a decade of being involved with it. I'm like, we built a building in Haiti, and I don't know if you ever heard of it, blah, 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 10 trips on there. So I've been there personally 5 times myself. And when I say we built it, I have a small picture here, give you a kind of an idea of it. that was what it looked like on the, I'm not sure, left or right, whichever way you're looking at it. And then that's it over on the other side there now. And so Haiti, if you're not familiar, which frankly I wasn't before I really ever knew Andy. I didn't know much about the history of the country or anything aside from very poor place, poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And so after the earthquake really rocked the country, he went down there with a group of medical aid people, with Angel Wings International, with the nonprofit that I'm now a part of. But before there was ever a building, and they were like, we need an actual physical clinic. We don't, these part-time clinics aren't sustainable. So after what was now known as the infamous beer, two guys got together and they said, let's do this thing, man. And that's my good friend Andy, and then another guy involved with Angel Wings, Carl Drew, who's tied in with my bike ride as well. So he's done a lot of stuff with that. So it's all kind of connected together. And and then I've taken 5 trips down there. There's been over 10 trips altogether, and we built it from the ground up, foundation, put the walls in. I did the painting. We didn't have an outside crew or anything, and it's really exciting. We know each other. And then to my professional background, I'm with a company called Cutco Cutlery, which we do super high quality American-made kitchen knives, all that stuff. Sell knives, change lives.
Cutco.com.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. And the thing I love about, one of the things about, aside from like this, and for the next 20 minutes, let's tell your friends about our lovely knives here. No, it's the community that is within Cutco. So I've been doing it for 15 years. I'm in the Cutco Hall of Fame. So is Andy. Of the $1.2 million that we raised, over 650,000 of that came from private Cutco donations. So it's just cool things like that. Keep the whole family together. And then, so we built the clinic. We opened it on the 7-year anniversary of the earthquake, and we did a lot of fundraising. And so speaking of that, this kind of ties into how I initially started doing my fundraising for the clinic. My first fundraising project ever was the Run for Hope, which I learned when I'm about 23, 24 years old, that I could do things with my body and people would give me money for it. Playing. No, what I mean is what a lot of your listeners might know already, which is you can get people to sponsor you to run a race, right? You can get people. Oh yeah, so that's how I started with my first trip to Haiti. Was how I raised $2,500 to pay for my first trip fee. Was I asked Cutco clients, I said, hey, on top of your order, or if you're not ordering at all, would you like to make a $25 donation to this building that I'm building, this nonprofit? And that was the first eye-opening thing of seeing how many people really just want and crave an avenue to give and have that part of their soul, part of them that wants to contribute, wants to give back. And that's why I came on with the Ride for Hope, and I call it the Run for Hope and the fight. I've done the Fight for Hope too. And it's because people want to, have that avenue to give people hope and have that channel to do it. And so by running marathons or boxing or riding my bike, I'm able to kind of do those things and get sponsorship for it, bring it all full circle. Right.
Yeah. And so many things that you just mentioned overlap with the things that we discuss in the podcast and the communities, the community that we have here. I think that the running community in general, some of the most generous people that are out there. I mean, you look at the amount of money that gets raised year in and year out through events like you're talking about, the Run for Hope and things like that. And then combined with, when you so many New York City marathon runners or Boston marathon runners, the only way they get in or the way they choose to get in is to raise money for charities. And they raise, millions of dollars every year for charities. And there's something inherent, I think, in endurance sports and the nature of that and sort of the camaraderie amongst athletes that I think is very generous and giving. It's a very interesting community, I think, that way. And it's interesting that you found it, because we didn't have I think you might be the first guest I've had on the program that we don't have an athletic connection. We have a nonprofit connection.
Sure.
And so it's kind of interesting to hear the story, because, I didn't know this. I'm learning this, firsthand. But, and starting our own profit, a lot of overlap, trying, giving people avenues to give, and they showed up big for us too. We recently finished our Ordinary Marathon, which is our fundraiser, and very generous people, and really just always looking to give. And, we're searching for for ways to give back. And it was very interesting to hear your, you found the poorest country on this half of the world, and you built them just after a major traumatic event, and you built them a hospital that they needed. So it's an incredible story to hear. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have planned next? I mean, you said you did a run, you did a fight, and now you have something a little bit bigger, I would think, planned.
I want to get to that before I do. Yeah, I just mentioned the clinic now, where it's gotten to, and why it is my primary why is, yeah, it's open, it's functional. Just this year alone, we've delivered over 200 children. So like lives are being saved on the regular. New babies are being born. This building that we built is bringing life into the world. So it's kind of crazy to think about. Coming back to what we said earlier about like starting at the beginning of our nonprofit, mastermind group, we don't know where it's going. Just like when we decided to build this building, we didn't know where it's going. And here we are 10 years later, saving over 200 lives a year. It's crazy. And then going back to you too, in terms of like endurance sports and my past, and I have a theory, you bring that up, of that connection between endurance athletes and the propensity to give, right? That wanting to contribute more, not necessarily give, but to give back. And I think it's a combination of the dopamine endorphin dump and the amount of time you have out on the road to think about cool things to do.
That is true. You got plenty of time. So I like to think about nothing usually.
So speaking of that, one of the things that's in my training, and I would think some of your audience has probably either done this or thinking about doing this, is I wrote a book. So I wrote a book a few years ago.
Right.
It's called The Power to Change. So it's about making small changes over a long period of time that add up to lasting change in life. As every endurance athlete knows, it's about those little corrections long over time. It's not about jumping all up to the deep end. I'm not saying U-turns don't work in life, but this is, I don't know if you got the copy yet. This is me when I was 15. So yeah. Loved pizza, still love pizza, but didn't like to run as much as I do. And the reason I bring that in is like when I was doing my training for my first race is when I basically wrote the book in my head. And it's something, I call exercise meditation, which I'm sure, y'all are somewhat familiar with that, or whatever it is you call it in your own mind, but that flow of ideas that while you're getting that endorphin pump and the free time and the natural inspiration of the world, hopefully you're outside looking at things, but either way, that time, and so being able to capture those things. And there's a very long-winded way of, I'm getting to the answer of your question of what I'm doing now, because it was during one of these workouts that I came up with a absolutely crazy idea years ago. And now I don't want to say eating my words, but living my word and following through on, I kind of showed it already, but I'm going to be riding a bicycle from Miami to San Diego. So cross country ride for the nonprofit. So I mentioned before was the Run for Hope. And there was the Fight for Hope, which was a 5-round boxing match. I boxed my best friend. It's great. And then now is the Run for Hope. The Ride for Hope. So that will be awesome. Miami to San Diego, all to raise money for the medical clinic. And then I'll speak to young people along the way about the message in the book and kind of the whole message of building hope through healthy choices. So I had to touch on this to make the whole answer make sense.
Well, the book looks a little thicker than just making good choices. What's is it like a meat and potatoes to it? What's the meat and potatoes of the book?
Yeah. So there's, everything from failing forward, the success cycle, concepts that again come up with through running, 5 pillars of healthy habits. So everything from, it's a basic guide. So I wrote it for a young person to be able to absorb easily, because that's kind of the audience I'm looking to help. Because I believe if you do something in life other people struggle with, which in my case is childhood obesity and behavioral issues, you got to help the other people who are coming up after you. But it also has enough content. You can give it to a business owner, a CEO, someone, and they'll like it. They'll burn through it. It's a good plain read. It's a good quick one. But everything from certain ways to eating habits, hydration, and then hyper awareness and stay
Yeah.
on top of your goals.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So all right. So you're out there running one day, and did the idea just pop into your head that you wanted to ride across country? Was that not even a thing? Were you just trying to think of what am I going to do next? How did that idea come about?
Sure. Well, I think the common theme you're going to find here is that big grand things like this, or anything for that matter, don't happen all of a sudden. They are a culmination of different life events or choices or things, and then ideas that kind of all come together. So the actual moment where I was like, oh, I'm going to raise money to ride my bicycle across country. Yes, it was an aha moment when I was riding a bike, but leading up to that, this is effectively like 8 years in the making, meaning
Wow.
a friend of mine when I was 23, I'm 32 right now. We're out at a bar. He just told me, he's like, I just rode my bike across country. It was awesome. I partied, I hitchhiked, I camped, I did it all. And I was 23. I just finished my first half Ironman, top of the world fitness. I'm like, I'm doing that. That's my life. But I never really thought bigger than that. And then shortly after that, I wrote The Power to Change, right? So I was about 25. I published it. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to do this bike ride, I should probably talk to young people along the way. Got inspired by another couple of groups of people who'd done a similar mission. Like, oh, you can speak to young people, you can help. It's like, I'm not going to ride across country with a book in my back of my pocket and not influence or at least try and help people along the way. And then we built the medical clinic within all this time. And then I went there, we opened it. I've been there, I said, four times now. Yeah. And 4 or 5. It's hard to keep track. I'm looking at my poster here. I'm going back soon, but regardless, we opened it. And then that was 3 years ago. And then being on the board of directors now as a chief philanthropic officer and taking, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. And I was tired of watching us struggle every single month, trying to figure out how we're literally going to pay these doctors. We got to pay the nurses. We got to pay the doctors. And it got down to the point that we're paying it out of pocket. We're 100% grassroots. We would love a paid employee one day, but we're not there yet. So every dollar we get goes directly back into the medical clinic, supplies, medication, pay the doctors, all that stuff. I was like, well, we need a longer term solution. And then one day I was out riding my bike and just kind of, I'm going to raise all the money. I did the math in my head. I was like, we need $11,000 a month for the next 2 years. So that $250,000 for the bike ride. Let's go. And that was 3 years ago now. And then just momentum, time. Technically, it was supposed to be originally this said the Ride for Hope 2020. Not gonna lie.
Well, I was gonna say you're talking about planning this and how, and I mean, geez, I'm thinking, all right, and what would I do? How would I go about if I decided, all right, I'm gonna ride my bike cross country, what made you pick Miami to San Diego? I mean, I'm guessing the weather, but did you then sit down at a computer and try to plan out a route? Are there places along the way? Like you said, you're going to talk to kids. So do you travel 150 extra miles south just to go somewhere because you can talk to some kids down there?
Yeah.
All that stuff enters my mind. I'm blown away by how you even start this. And obviously you've been doing it for 3 years. So how did you go about planning something like this?
Well, again, it's a constant. It's set in stone. So much so we got the logo. It's Miami to San Diego. I have the route, but it's changed. It was going to be San Diego to New York City because that's where I'm from originally. That's where my aunt, that's our mutual connection is from. And then I was going to do it in November because that was the time of year. And then I changed it because that wasn't good for work. And then I moved it further down south to DC because that didn't make sense because I figured out that it's still cold in DC in the wintertime. So I was like, what's further down south than that? It's like, oh, I'll do it in Miami. But then it's still actually, believe it or not, check with the Austin people, very cold in January in Austin. So we pushed it time of year. Basically, I've changed it 12.5 times. We are set in stone at 7.5 out of 8 years before the bike ride. You know what I'm saying? I told my assistant recently, this is up until 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, I might go the other direction because of the wind. That's just it. That's a fact. That's I am going the harder way. I've decided to do it because I want to come home to San Diego. It all makes more sense that way. But she even was like, you can't change again. We have to change the logo. We have to change all the wording. I got to change the schedule. So at a certain point, you just got to commit or, do it. And so, and then Miami, because that's where Angel Wings International is based out of. So that's where it all
Sure.
began.
And that would make sense. Sure.
That's where
Close
Andy
to probably
is.
the
Yeah, that's what he's Haitian. He
closest
lives
big city to Haiti.
exactly.
Right.
So we'll start there on March 17th of next year. So 2017 or March 17th, 22. So St. Patrick's Day. And then the goal is 6 weeks, but I'm allowing up to 8 weeks. So this is not a race. I'm not racing across America. And I've basically planned it like a 2-day on, 1 day off type schedule. And in terms of the cities, going back to, reasons that I'll live and die by the Cutco sword for my life is I already have a connection in every one of those cities that I'm stopping in. So I have a connection, I have places to speak, I have places to stay. I won't have to pay for a meal. Of course, I'm obviously willing to. We want sponsorship, but that goes back to the Knife Life family that we've created over the last, better part of 2 decades. And plugging into that network. But yeah, it will be so Miami, and then the route is Miami to Orlando to New Orleans, New Orleans to Houston, Austin, and then Austin straight shot to Phoenix, Palm Springs, because that's a local hub down here for me too, and then straight shot back home to San Diego.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you it's so we believe it or not, we've I don't want to like overshadow what you're planning. So I'm hesitant to even mention him, but we had a guy named Frank Fumick who rode his bike in a race. It was called Race Across America, and he actually did it twice from left to right. And there was a whole, there was a northern, like I think he finished in DC or around there, somewhere up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember him talking about like the Rocky Mountains and I don't want to psych you out either.
I'm staying
you might be
away
staying south enough. Yeah, you might be staying south enough that you'd be okay. Let me ask you this then. So you've been planning this for 3 years. How did you decide how are you going about training for this thing? Or are you just like, it's just a bike, I can just ride?
Nope. But it's funny. Before I answer that, I have to point something out that you just did. It's great because your audience, you'll love this. Is that I've been telling people about this for the better part of 5 years now, and I've realized you really only get 2 reactions. It's very polarizing when you tell someone you're riding a bicycle across country. You only get 2 reactions. Number one is
you're crazy.
What? You're doing what? You're gonna what on a bicycle with your legs? You should take a bus. You should fly. I don't know any one of those answers. The second one is always, I know someone who did that.
There you go. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that guy.
No, that's perfect.
But I was.
It's perfect because there's nothing in between. Because once I started meeting people who've done it before, once I started hearing stories about how it's been done, it's not even a matter of if I can do it. It's the same thing as you've run a marathon, right? You've seen other people do it. And you also seen, going back to your question about training, you've seen people at mile 20 whose legs burn out and die, cramp, right? So it all comes back to the training and the preparation. But yeah, like people don't, they just, it's either yes, or like, I know about that, or like, oh no, it's wild. But yeah, training wise, I'm a huge proponent of just preparation. That's it. I've done a multiple of races before, both mostly prepared and a couple unprepared, just enough unprepared ones to never do that again. And I've done, like I did my longest endurance race was a half Ironman, and not like trying to flex or anything, but like it was actually relatively easy. The race itself, I had no issues. I finished, and my first thought when I finished was like, I should have pushed harder. I was like, I'm good. And of course you're coming off that runner's high, like I could do it again. And that's why people do run a full Ironman. And respect to anyone who's listening who does. That's the one on my list that I still haven't gotten to. That
I might know a guy. Who did one of those before.
I'm sure you did. I'll get that one day. My why has never been quite strong enough, and then I picked this race to do it. Anywho, but yeah, and just the training in general. So I've always been a big fan of getting a really, really good baseline down. I've always said too, my races are never difficult because my training is insane. I just train super hard, train hard. And I've been quoted before. One of my managers and top guys, he loves this quote. He always reminds me. One time I ran across the entire island of Aruba because I wanted to run across the country. So I've run across the country, and now I'll bike across the country, 2 different countries. But he asked me before, he goes like, dude, what are you doing that for? What are you training for? And I wasn't training for anything. I was like, he goes, what are you doing that? What are you training for? And I was training for life, baby. And I don't know. Who knows? It's a zombie apocalypse or something. If running 20 miles might be a great skill to have in your back pocket. So,
but like we saw that. I mean, we saw the picture of Pizza Eric. When did it just start? Were there like 5Ks? Was a half marathon? You mentioned a half marathon before.
Yeah. And so, to get into like the specifics of like training, I always recommend, like, we could go on and on. We could have a 2-hour podcast about the specifics of training.
Yeah, sure.
People who are more qualified than me to talk about it. What I always tell people when they start, find a program that works for you. I've always been a huge Hal Higdon fan. People are like, how'd you train? I'm like, I downloaded a thing on the internet. I put it on the wall. I did what it said. Like, so, that answers your question too, right? How did Pizza Eric become now Eric? Well, Pizza Eric's still in there. I just run more and eat less pizza. And I got so tired of people not tired, but people would be like, dude, how'd you lose weight? I lost the majority of my weight. High school sports. I got involved with sports in high school, and that's kind of when I started, growing up. I got taller and all those good things, but also at the same time, I was like, eat less and run more. But at a certain point, that gets kind of crude, I'm sure you guys, you get it. But like, for people who are in the struggle, like, that's a little bit rude to be like, come on, you're 200 pounds overweight, just eat less and run more. So that's why I wrote the book. I was like, all right, I'll break it down for you. And then when people ask me like, oh, how do you do it? I'm like, read the book. And they're like, oh, well, tell me. I'm like, put it in a book for you. I got tired of, not tired of, I'm happy to explain it. I'm always happy to have these conversations. But again, I believe in a type of purpose of like, put it into an organized format. Here it is in 100 pages or less of how to, make that transition. It comes down to just small steps, right? Failing forward. That brings me to, the first half marathon. How did I get involved with marathons and racing? I never run more than 2 miles in my life until I was 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. My 7th grade gym teacher, after I was not marked as not able to run a mile, they told me I was not able. So that was just my mindset. So I was 21. Never went more than 2 miles until a friend of mine at a Cutco conference at the hotel on the trip that we were working with Angel Wings, wild coincidences, goes, dude, you should sign up for your first half marathon. And I was like, I don't know if you heard me. I said, I don't run. And he was, dude, just do it. And then I just, on a whim, we signed up. We went for a 2-mile run that day, and he gassed me. We're in Miami, and just dead in one of those super fancy hotels on South Beach, pouring water all over myself in the lobby. They hated it. But signed up for a race, and then I did the majority of the training on a treadmill in the basement gym of a PB, a San Diego fitness center here, my first race, my first one, I got the little medal right over here, but I didn't get that medal on my first round attempt of it because I overslept and I missed the start of the race.
Oh, and sleeping, maybe that's a connection there, because I remember when we did our nonprofit meeting, being on time and waking up early. That's like one of your things.
It is now, but it wasn't so much that day. But yeah, check this out. What happened was I was running the race. It started at 8:15, and I woke up at 7:45, 7:47, and it's 20 minutes away. The race is starting gun at 8:15. Y'all know, I don't have my oatmeal. I didn't get to stretch. None of that. I jam out the door. I made it a 20-minute drive in 9 minutes. I Tokyo drifted into the parking lot. And I pulled up. Yeah, this is the first race, and I showed up at about 8:35, so it was 20 minutes late. And everyone was gone. Everyone had left, except these guys taking down the sound equipment, right? The sound stage. And I was like, where's everybody? And he's like, dude, they left. You're late. And I'm like, which way did they go, dude? And he just pointed. And I just took off running, man. And I ran the first 4 miles of the race. I knew the route, so I just ran it. And then I caught up to the lady running in last place. And I saw him. I was like, I'm not going to be last. And just darting from the back of the crowd, and eventually crossed the finish line. I didn't get an official time, but finished the race. And I think that's kind of been a theme of my training since then. And then I got an opportunity to run another one the very next weekend, and I finished in a sub. My goal was under 2 hours, and I made hour 59:48. And that was like,
Wow, nice.
that was kind of the start of it for me, of the running. And then the running led to the Ironman, and the Ironman led to the to the bike, because I was like, my knees. But it's,
I tell you, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that after you finished the half iron, that you said that you thought you could have done it faster, but did you do another one? Like, I feel like that would, knowing that I still had something in the tank, I would have to do another one. A lot of people do that though. They do the first one to finish, and then after that, you can kind of learn, and you could see, you can figure out, all right, I had energy here. I'm better at the bike than the run. Maybe I should do, or whatever it may be. You never had the itch to go back and do another?
well, I always do. Let's talk about the other side of life. Let's talk about the injuries.
There you go.
Yep. So about 3 or 4 weeks after that half Ironman is when I had my meniscus torn. My first, that was, I would say, my first and my only serious knee injury. And happy ending to the story, aside from it being 4 days before, or no, it was a couple weeks after the Ironman, and it was 4 days before a marathon. That's what it was. I was trained up.
Yeah.
I was on the Wednesday before the race day on Sunday. And California style, I popped it riding on the skateboard on the boardwalk. Don't do stupid things the week of your race.
Right.
And then, but the positive is I was able to get the surgery about 4 months later. Do your PT, stick to that physical therapy. And I ran that same race the following year. And that was, I think, the Run for Hope. No, that was a different one. I raised money for that one too. At this point, they've all kind of, at a certain point, they start blending together. Right. And then when you start training for full marathons, it really, to me, I did a bunch of halves, but they kind of all blend when your training runs get to be like 13, 15 miles. And you're like, I don't know, whatever, call it what you want. I didn't get a medal, but I still did it.
So how long are your training rides these days? Are you doing like probably 3 or 4 days a week? How are you attacking this? There's no, Higdon didn't ride a bike, so I'm assuming you got something from somewhere.
To talk specifics to get to, where we are now with the bike ride. So I finished the half Ironman, did the other race, and I popped the knee, and then that's recovery. So ever since then, I just never really got back to the like full Ironman. Really what it came down to is like, I always feel like I could now. I just don't have the strong enough why. And running a full, multi-million-dollar business, as well as a nonprofit, as well as I've got a girlfriend and I have a life and I like the beach. I'm like, it takes the time, and I just haven't I know what it will take, and I haven't had the moment yet in my life where I'm ready to put that in, but I'll get there. It's on the list. Yeah. But no, then that got me to cycling. So that's when the knee injury thing, I was like, oh, well, cycling's a lot more long-term for me, at least right now. And I still love running, and I do it regularly. And then I did
definitely better on the knee, right? Definitely easier on the knee instead of all the pounding and running.
Longevity, it's like about the longevity of it. And so that's why I kind of picked cycling. And then I'm trying to think what the next race was from there, but I just started getting more interested. So to speak on the training, 3 years ago, I rode my bicycle from San Diego to Las Vegas. So that's 290
That's
miles.
Like nothing compared to what you're trying to do now, though.
Yeah, and so I'll be doing that again in October. I call it the warm-up ride because it is through the Mojave Desert during the hottest part of the year.
Right.
And
so warm-up.
Yeah. So specifically training-wise, I'm a huge fan. First of all, it starts with flexibility, injury prevention. The only thing that holds me back is myself when I hurt myself, and don't be stupid. Don't get hit by a car. But so number one, flexibility, just taking care of that. I was utilizing a sauna quite a bit pre-COVID. That was a huge part of my training, but that's also not accessible for most people, and even me anymore. In California, the gyms are closed, and I'm also learning the last year not to rely on something as elaborate as a sauna for training. It's more about the whole, what can you do outside with a stick and a piece of curb that you can do differently. But the actual training rides themselves, it's the similar program to the marathon training, and it's just changing it up, all diversity. So I'll do short rides where I'll be going either for speed or I'm in a hilly area, so I can hit them hills if I want to. And then as it starts to lengthen out, those longer rides. So I really just started my first phase of training this past, once I hit the year mark. which now I'm doing. My rides are about 30 to 40 miles. And then once I start really gearing up for the Vegas ride, they'll branch out to like 60 to 80. And then my goal this year is if I do 10 century rides, so 10 100-mile rides, at least one or two of them back to back, like I'm good. Like did the Vegas ride, my last ride before I rode 40 miles with a 28-pound weight vest on. I'm like, let's go. Like, let's do the thing. And then I did. It was, when I have a weight vest, I'm a big fan of the weight vest. So, utilizing that and not so much so.
That's great, especially on hills. If you're training with that weight vest on hills, that will get you in shape for sure. Now, do you have any of the, you said you have, where you're staying and what, I don't know if you have the menu yet, but you're not paying for meals or whatnot. So what do you know what the longest sort of 1 day stretch of the ride will be? Is it right around 100 miles or is it plus or minus?
Yeah. And you said something too. I want to talk about nutrition as well, because that's a huge part of the training. And I thought that's where your question was going to go. So I was going to say,
I thought about it briefly, but
no, the goal, look, break it down to the ridiculous. That's a chapter in the book, right? So just break it down. Like once you start breaking down goals to ridiculous, it's really not a big deal. Like when I figured out that it's not 3,000 miles, it's 40, 80-mile rides. Like I can ride 80 miles. I'll ride 80 miles a day. Like, just do that 40 times, once every other day. Like, I'll do that tomorrow, which I don't have to. But like, so whatever your goal is, right? So the marathon, half marathon, Ironman, like it's just like I said, go back to that training protocol and just break it down. And then what we were talking about, what you mentioned, I think before we jumped on, is like getting on the bike. Well, then it comes, it's super great to have a plan, but where do we lose everybody is the massive action. That's the success cycle that I talk about in the book. Is it's great, make a plan, but you got to take the massive action. And then that massive action leads back into that feedback loop of what your next plan is. And that's training, right? So I know I can't ride to Vegas today, but I know if I do my workout this weekend, I'll be ready to ride to Vegas in 4 months.
Yeah. So you're feeling comfortable? Are you feeling you're nervous about it? It's so much goes into it, because it's not only like just, you think of weather, you think of so many things, you make the plan, but then sometimes it's about the things that happen to you during the plan, right? When are you sort of mentally prepared? Are you doing anything sort of like mentally to kind of prepare you for that day and those days of the ride?
Yeah. No, but I'm just ready. Like, I'm just ready to go. I know it's going to happen. Like, I know it's going to suck. I'll have days I'm going to get probably a little injured. I'm going to get hurt. Someone might even hit me with a car. I might get upset. Speaking gigs are going to cancel. They're going to send me the wrong books. Hotels are going to get messed up. It's going to rain. The wind's going to suck for sure. But like, it's going to be a blast. So you just go. It's just like, in my mind, like, Scott, I'm here. Like, I'm already there. Like, I already have the spot of like where the ride is finishing. Like, I've been there. It's a place where I rode my bike for the first time. I'll ride there this weekend. Like, and I encourage this with anybody, is like, find something that makes you so emotional and so tied into where your heart is that like it brings you to tears to just think about or be there. And that's how I am when I'm there. I'm like, I already know what it's going to be like. I see, I already have, we already raised $32,000. Like, people are donating. I've got a ton of momentum. We're redoing our sponsorship packet right now. Anyone who's interested, like, of course we'll reach out to you, but like it's already done in my mind, here's the crazy thing, man. I started thinking about 2 days ago. I haven't even said this out loud yet. I haven't said this out loud. My girlfriend in the other room, she's probably going to hear this and be like, are you kidding?
Uh-oh.
I'm like thinking about like, what if I do it again the next year, but like by myself without all this crazy shit? I'm like, I need another relaxing ride after this, because it's just.
Hey, look, I don't want to be responsible for anything going on with your relationship there.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying to like think about all these like things and these factors. But like, part of what I've been doing for the last decade with like speaking in public or doing these races or boxing my best friend to raise money for this cause is like, you take that fear and you use that and you channel it as excitement. And that's like what makes a person extraordinary from, ordinary or anything. That is like, is you just like, yeah, I get nervous. Like, you're stupid if you don't get nervous riding a bicycle on a highway across the country. Like, So into the sun where people are looking the other way, into the wind, like all these factors, but like I'm going, like it's a thing. Like I don't know what my life would be a year from now. If I was like, oh yeah, like I didn't do that. Like I couldn't, it's been my identity for like 5 years now. So much so that every time I post a photo on Facebook, I get like messages now, like, good luck on your ride. I'm like, it starts in 10 months. But thank you. Like, here's the link.
Well, I mean, it means something. Every time I think someone acknowledges what you're doing, and kind of gives you, it sort of gives you, I remember from myself doing New York City Marathon and having people donate money. It's like when people donate money, it does to a certain degree add, well, I think it's two things. It's a little bit of pressure, right? Because you've got $32,000. That's $32,000 bet on you finishing that trip. So you bet, coming from someone who's bet not that much money, but yeah, it's pressure. It's a little pressure, but it also it's motivational too, right? You can kind of take that and use it in your training on race day, and just go out there and say, and know that all those folks that donated money, they want to see you succeed and they want to see you finish, and
I'll tell you,
can help use that, use that when you're down and when you're, when it gets tough.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story about that and about the Vegas ride, and it's a metaphor behind that too, to answer your other question, which is, I rode from San Diego to Vegas, and at midnight on the first night, I bent my tire. So it sent me back on a 5.5 hour detour in the car to go get a new tire. Lesson: bring extra tires. Don't forget. And we started the ride 6 hours late that day, which fast forward to riding through the Mojave Desert, which I planned on getting into the desert at 2 p.m. Instead, I was sitting at the border of the desert at 8:30 p.m. Sun's going down. It's me, my support car. And I'll tell you, man, that was the lowest point of the ride for me. I was like, bummed. This whole like, oh, I'm going to ride through the desert. It's going to be beautiful. I'm like, oh, these things, right? And I was just bummed. But what got me through that moment, I pulled out my phone, man, and I had all these text messages from all the people I just read. And even if it weren't immediate, but like people who knew I was out doing it, it was just like, you're there with you, right? And that's they're there with you. They're investing not just the money, but the time and the thought into you. And that pushed it through. And then we went into the desert, and the metaphor that I found when I was in there, which you have lots of time to think on a bicycle for 6 hours in the desert at night by yourself. My buddy was in the car behind me because my light had died. But basically, you're going up this on a hill, and my light was dead. You can only see 100 feet, 200 feet in front of you. And it's going up the whole way. And in your mind, right, and you're going uphill, what do you think? Like, got to go down eventually, right?
Right.
It's got to go down eventually, right?
Well, you're looking for the top, right? You want to see that crest.
And it flattens, and then it would curve around, and it would just keep going up. And man, Scott, I was going for about an hour and a half of just straight up, and realizing I had this epiphany, this aha moment at midnight in the desert. I was like, man, life, you are not promised any easy down part at any point. And it's just hard. Sometimes hard gets harder, and then it gets harder and harder. And maybe it will get better. For me, it did that time. Eventually it does go down if you push certain, but we're so used to this in life that we're not used to doing a lot of this. And I think your audience is used to doing a lot of this, and the payoff, whatever that is for them. But so just that kind of, you have to be like, oh, how are you going to train? What happens if things go wrong? I'm like, dude, hill's going to keep going up forever, man. And one day, if I just keep training and just keep pushing, like we'll get a moment, and we'll get it easier. But
yeah, and it sounds like you got the perfect finish there planned for you too, and I hope it all works out for you. It sounds like you got a lot of plans and a lot of years of planning. It's good that this is like kind of like a personal thing that you're going after. That it's just that's not like a timed event, and you don't have to be anywhere at a certain. You just got to get from point A to point B whenever it happens. And I think it's awesome, man. I think it's awesome that you're doing it for a cause, not just a cause, but something that is like, it's so near and dear. You painted the building, right? It was a nice paint job too, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. A lot of time on that paint time. Learned a lot of skills down there, but yeah. And it's exciting. And so, yeah, if you want, I can give Instagram is probably the best way if people want to follow along.
Absolutely. Yeah, like what I was going to say is why don't you let us know how we can kind of get more information on the ride, where we can go to learn more, and if anyone wants to donate, anything like that. Shoot it out for us.
Yeah, and so we're in the process of launching our website specifically for the Ride for Hope currently. The easiest thing to do is just follow me on Instagram, send me a DM. That's how I'm interacting with most people directly. And it's Eric, ERIC, Rides for Hope. The word for Eric Rides for Hope. It's all kind of unanimous across the thing, the Ride for Hope. So it's Eric Rides for Hope. And I got where are my stickers here? Oh, here we go. Got the logo and everything. So if you send me a DM or whatever, I'll shoot you some stickers. The new ones have the Instagram on them. Put them up in your city. Do something cool with it. I'll send you a copy of my book. You know, I'm here to help more people and do more stuff. I'm very grateful and very lucky with my job that I'm able to do these things. You know, I've been allowed the opportunity to give back in the way that we are. And then, if you want to donate to the cause, reach out to me directly. And the reason we're redoing that sponsorship pack, this one's great, but I want to make it as much of a win for our sponsors as possible. You know, what I'm finding and talking to more people is, look, some people want to give me $5,000 and they want their name across my chest. Other people want to give me $10,000 and they don't want their name mentioned at all. So get in touch with me. Let me know what Eric Rides for Hope can bring to your opportunity. And if you just want to support, then hey, I mean, we're a nonprofit medical clinic with no profit employees. So we need every dollar we could take, or we get. So, and when in a place that average person lives off of $8 a week and it costs $21 to literally save a life most of the time, like your 20 spot does make a difference. So.
Yeah, it works. It helps. It helps. It's good to know. And I know, a lot of people like to hear that. They like to hear that, that the money that they donate, the money that they give, it goes right to the cause, helping people out. And certainly in this case, helping people who really, really need it. So, listen, I'm happy I met you. I'm happy that we're in this group together, this nonprofit group together. And I think it's amazing the work that you guys have done so far. And I hope you continue to do it. This event seems to be incredible. What you've decided to do here, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are gonna follow along. Definitely let us know when you get that website up and running, and we'll post it up along our pages as well. And wish you the best of luck. Anything I miss here, Eric?
No, I just really, Scott, I appreciate this opportunity to share, with the group, and that's really how I've done anything big in my life is getting around people like-minded who are just sharing and asking for, resources of people who are willing to give them. So I just really appreciate any opportunity to share this story further or anything I can do to support your community, the Ordinary Marathoner community. I'm a huge proponent of eat less and run more. It saved my life. And I know the power of running and, all those things that make one step at a time, one left foot, right foot, as I used to say. It's the old running song.
Sure is. All right. Well, again, and I thank you so much for taking some time and spending some time with us. I really appreciate it. And we're going to be having more guests like Eric on the show in the next coming weeks and coming months. We haven't had a guest. You're actually my first guest in quite some time. We kind of went to solo podcast while we built out the nonprofit and did our event, the Ordinary Marathon. But we'll be having more guests in the near future. That being said, you can visit our website, ordinarymarathoner.com. And remember, every day is an ordinary day unless you make it extraordinary. So get after it, guys.